Greetings everyone and welcome to the BlastCast. I am Jarvis. With me as always is the man who flies without a canopy lid, Lightning Dragon.
Yeah, it makes it less weight, so I go faster.
It's like to have your hair blow.
Indeed, what little hair I have.
Alright, before we get into Around the Verse and all that good stuff, let's get into something that was posted on Reddit and looks like also on the Refund page it kind of states the same. It looks like after 30 days, refunds are not going to be issued anymore, so refunds are kind of done with. And
I wonder why.
Well, I mean, I can kind of understand it as well to a degree. We'll just have to see how this develops. I mean, what kind of outcry there is by the community. I don't know. There's always going to be people outcrying if anyone says anything, so I'm relatively neutral on the subject. I'm in for the long haul, and people can still gray market their ships or whatever if it comes down to that. But, you know, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Hey, guess what?
What?
I heard the sky is blue.
Let's argue shades now. This week on Around the Verse, pretty straightforward. They said they're doing some refinement to turrets, which isn't going to work until they actually get controls worth a damn, and the pacing works to go along with it, but, you know, whatever. ESP adjustments are now being made. People are complaining that, and they've actually shown videos on this, is where they just select a target and they let go of their controls, and ESP actually basically makes them follow the ship that they're targeting. So it's now become a autopilot to a degree. Good times. They're also trying to make adjustments to how you work your components inside of the system, like power and settings like that. None of that's going to matter too much with the pacing being as high as it is. Once again, until pacing is adjusted, it's really not going to matter too much what they do. They gave us a nice little white box preview of the upcoming 890 jump, and looks like it's coming along. And they also showed off the 600i touring module.
Now with even more spindly parts attached.
Well, it looks like the whole cargo bay on the exploration module in the middle is kind of like this nice wrapped around staircase, plants, big couches in the middle. Also up top it has these cabins where people can go. I'd be interested to know if it has more windows too for those people in those cabins. They said
because windows are the gateway to the universe.
Well, yeah, but they said that the ship's about 99% done, and I would imagine they're just going to patch it into the persistent universe so that you can quickly get out there with a bunch of your friends, have someone with a dragonfly approach you from behind and blow you to hell. This week on Reverse the Verse, it was more kind of a fun show. They had an artist on making a character showing how the process works, and they made a cyborg Disco Lando chef character, and it actually was a fun watch. I was pretty much enthralled with it for the entire hour, mostly because of watching how they go through the whole creation of character from the process of creating a silhouette and then fleshing it out. Very cool. Alright, and for calling all devs, some good questions this week. Will a solo player with a high-quality NPC crew be as efficient or as skillful as a crew of players on another ship? And they said yes, absolutely. I think you have some thoughts on that, Lightning.
Yeah, as far as gunners go, yeah, sure. I actually would probably think that the AI would be better if you're paying for a very high-skilled one. But as far as the flying, you might want to fly your own ship.
Yeah, unless you like flying into asteroids and things. Someone asked about what's the status of moving ships from the point where they're not just 100% exploded until basically disabled and tumbling or split in half or whatnot. The first thing they have to do to get that to work is they need to finish the wear and tear on components. And then they need to work on the system, further refine it where damage on the outside can be translated into the inside. So that involves splitting the internal physics grid to accept those damage transfers. Alright, and when can we expect Tier 0 of the survival mechanics? They need to get systems such as thirst and hunger to be implemented first, and then they need to be put into the game and all the animations for like using showers and toilets and whatnot. There's a lot still to be done.
They've talked about survival kind of things like here and there, like, oh, if you're smelly, you know, people might want to talk to you. And it's all been kind of teased and joked about. And I think most of the community pretty much thought it's kind of like, oh, well, you know, you can drink or you can eat if you want to, but it's not going to be required. Them talking about it being required changes the entire nature of the game. We're not going from a flight sim, excuse me, FPS game. We're going into a full survival game. You know, things like Ark or Empyrean or Space Engineers. And I'm sorry, but there's better survival games out there than Star Citizen can or ever will be. I don't want a survival game. I don't give a shit about drinking every 5 minutes because otherwise I'll die. If I want to play a game, I want to play that kind of game. And Star Citizen has never been a survival game for me.
And it has to partially go along the lines with, you know, and I'm neutral on the subject. Let's just put that out there. For me, it comes down the lines of having all these complex systems once again, and you have this terrible, and it's getting worse with every patch, flight that doesn't match the pacing of the systems, the complexity. Why do you need survival mechanics if your ship's going to explode in under 30 seconds? What's the point? To me, I get that they're working on the damage translation, but the thing is that you still take damage so quickly. Fights are over because they're basically two ships spinning and shooting at each other. It's so weird to see these attempts at complex systems mired underneath this veneer of pure shooter garbage. As much as I would like to see how they approach these things, because I said I like the mining, and there is potential in the survival mechanics. Like, for example, let's say your ship crashes on a planet, okay? You're on a forested planet or whatever environment you imagine. Because of the travel times or whatnot, maybe you won't even be able to communicate with people, unless, of course, you have TeamSpeak or something. But the point is that you're a solo player or whatnot, and you got to send out a distress beacon. Your survival from getting A to B, hunting, maybe fishing, I don't know, whatever it takes to get to where you're going to transmit or to get help might take you a while. And I don't mind the idea of basically being stranded on a planet for a few game sessions, because that can actually be kind of interesting depending upon how it goes. You know, as long as there aren't things out there that are just impossible to beat. You know, you come around the corner and there's 14 rock monsters ready to beat your face in.
Or a Rancor, and you don't have your lightsaber.
Exactly. So the thing is that if it's done correctly, it can be deep and meaningful. But once again, this goes back into the idea that, you know, when you have these complex systems, and they're almost sim-like to a large degree. They're simulating an aspect of survival and living and life and all the things you need to maintain that life. The rest of it needs to match up. My main focus on this channel has always been the flight, but the more they put this stuff in there, and I look at it as either, like I said, positives or negatives, or maybe just bonuses, things that are added on to the initial vision, that's fine. But let's fix that core. Flight has not moved forward. Now, some people like to say 1.3 was like the best ever, but 1.3 would have never have blended with any of the flight mechanics with larger ships. It was never the right way to be. The closest I think we ever had for the game was probably the initial Arena Commander release, and then they threw the baby out with the bathwater, got rid of universal controls, and just basically, you know, anyway, it became a mess. And they've been downhill ever since and ignoring the issue as hard as they can.
The problem is they're adding too much stuff without making sure the stuff that came before it is solid and locked down.
Exactly.
Okay, this is good. Let's move on to something else.
Right, and as I said, I look at flight as your core, because that's what everyone, I think, initially speaking, backed for. And,
right.
and when your core is bad, I mean, you got all this extra stuff, which is fine. Without having that solid core, there's really no point to it. Someone asked if there's been developments to the down state. When we were shown the FPS initially, someone could get knocked down, you know, a teammate could grab them and drag them back behind, and then, like, you know,
I'm getting flashbacks of Army of Two.
Yeah, a little bit. The bandages are probably a little bit more sophisticated, though. But the thing is that this hasn't come in yet, obviously. You're just there and dead. Now, they do want this to come in as soon as possible. A couple changes when that happens is that your medipens are going to be temporary fixes. You'll need to see an actual doctor for more serious wounds. Right now, they're just a full heal because that's the minimal system that they have in there. There's knockdowns coming, but the healing systems are going to take a bit longer to develop. We'll just have to see how that goes. But they want to increase the time to kill on the ground because they said it would suck to fly 30 minutes or so to location. You step out of your ship and you're just dead.
Someone shoots you twice with a pistol and then you're like, oh, well, you're dead.
So we'll just have to see how they put it together. Once again, that's kind of FPS related stuff. It is important to the game, especially because you're moving around the world.
I think
in a lot of ways,
the two most important things in the game is flight, followed closely by FPS, because those are going to be the two most done things in the game. And I would say mining, salvaging, cargo runs, that's all a part of flight. So you get your flight good, and you get your walking around, movement, gunplay all good. And then if your flight is good, the mechanics are just tie into that. There's no loss or difficulty in changing those. You're not, making an entire new gameplay system.
Mining's mining. If your flight dynamics change, it doesn't change the fact that you're on the planet mining.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned a lot of flight on the show today, which is pretty common.
It's like the only game we talk about sometimes.
And of course, you may have noticed that the background had changed to DCS, this trailer that came out for their new expansion, basically Flaming Cliffs 4. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is right here. That's right, one of the most complex, deepest, most interesting flight sims on the market is now going to be mouse and keyboard flight compatible.
Now I don't have my HOTAS anymore. Yay!
Well, once again, this blows out the myth that mouse is for aiming, stick is for flying, even though that's been disproven by tons of other games out there. If one of the deepest, most complex combat flight sims on the PC is going to work with mouse and keyboard, CIG has zero excuses. Because what they've done is they've made everything focus on shooting and getting your pips right on the target. They're trying to make an FPS that you use with a joystick. They're doing the exact opposite, which is, gosh, they do so many things that are so bass-backwards.
Yeah, and if you give a little teaser of when we were flying, doing our little dogfighting, it's a lot of work to get in gun range and, I mean, be close enough where the guns are actually going to hit and not just drop when you have these, you know, very highly maneuverable airplanes. And another thing is these are airplanes, so they're working with a much more limited type of movement than a spaceship, where a spaceship can just thrust straight up or straight down or left or right. A plane can't do that.
Right. Well, I mean, unless it's a Harrier. But yeah, the thing is that
it'd be very difficult to do that.
Right. But with mechanics, like if you were to take these planes and you were to make them able to fly in space, and like the F-16 can pretty much almost get to space, but the thing is that it runs out of oxygen, so the engines don't make it. If you remove that factor, let's say you take that F-16 and you give it an engine that can do that, and it can actually make it to space. So what would happen in that circumstance? Obviously, if you, assuming that you gave it MAVs of some kind. So otherwise it would just float away. That would, you know, that would be hard to turn it.
Be a very short trip into space.
It would be a very long trip into space, like forever.
Well, I mean, what would happen is you'd just go suborbital, basically, unless you just kept thrusting forward.
I say just go for it. The thing is that if you were to take that F-16 and it had MAVs somewhere built on there, what would you be subtracting? Well, you'd be subtracting the effects of gravity when you get far enough from the planet. You would be subtracting atmospheric, so obviously the thing could drift backwards. It wouldn't have any issues like that. It could, you know, to a certain limited degree, strafe up, down, left, right, all that. It's one of those things that when you're designing craft that can fly in atmosphere and also in space, then you want to design it so that first and foremost it can actually fly and land in a reasonable or immersive way. Then you subtract those things and put it into space. So there's no excuse at all, period, that CIG has to create two different kind of control schemes and then wrap the whole flight model around trying to make it work, and the damage of the weapons per tier, and break everything along the way just to keep your time on target to like 99% of the time. It's ridiculous, and it needs to stop. No one enjoys flight. Well, I shouldn't say no one. There's obviously going to be a couple people out there being like, Malagos loves flight. I mean, he thinks it's the best thing ever.
Very few people enjoy flight.
Yeah, very, very few people. The numbers show it. The participation shows it. Heck, even the PvPers are starting to now protest Arena Commander not being worked on. Basically, they're sitting out at the one repair station in the persistent universe, camping and blowing up anybody that comes to repair their ship or charging them money to use it. It's one of those things that when your PvP community is even turning against you, and you've been catering to them forever. A lot of times they say, oh, they're listening to the flight people, and that's why it's all bad. No, they haven't listened to a single thing we've said. They've done the exact opposite of everything we said. If they had done anything of what we had said, we wouldn't have these problems.
No, we wouldn't be bitching about the game at all.
No, exactly. So, I mean, if they're doing everything that we said, why are we upset about it? Come on, figure it out. Logic much?
Yeah, we'd be playing it right now, not bitching about it. Exactly.
As I said, Star Citizen's a game I want to play. Flight is terrible. It's been years since they have done anything meaningful, and they've almost never touched gunnery, like at all, since they put IM in. They've done little tweaks, but for the most part, it's been band-aids and fixes, and they haven't addressed the elephant. Well, actually, this time it's a herd of elephants in the room, and
it's a blue whale beached on a beach.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But anyway, so we're beating that horse to death. So there you go, guys. There you go, CIG. No excuses, and you're wrong. Now, down below in the description, I'm going to have a link to the video where LD and I go at each other, well, in PvP and also work together in PvE in DCS, and it's a lot of fun. So if you want to check out that video and kind of see what I'm talking about when I refer to pacing and how complex flight can be, it's really worth checking out. I did a nice, fun split screen thing. It took a lot of hours. It took me 20 hours to put that video together with all the editing. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing it. but it was really complex. I tried some new editing techniques. Obviously, my next DCS video is going to be day 30. Now that's important because I wanted to do 30 days of active play where I can get at least 3 hours in, and those are the days that I count. Now the ones I can play for like 20, 30 minutes or something like that, I don't count those. That's not enough time. Where I can get the time into play and get some serious practice in. The next one will take me to 30, and after that I will do the video on answering, do I want DCS in space? So I would imagine that video coming out next week sometime. And I'm just trying to think of the format of how I want to approach it, what I want to do. Maybe I'm thinking of doing a breakdown from the startup all the way back to the landing. It seems to me to be, if I break down the characteristics that way, that might be the most logical way to do it. But I got to give it some thought. All right, everyone. Well, that's about it for everything on this week's BlastCast. As always, leave your comments and suggestions down below, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye, everybody.